Hello, Gen Genies. It's me, Julie.
And Rich.
Before we get started today, we want to let you in on some exciting news. We have launched our new Patreon page for the podcast.
Woohoo! We are super excited about this new chapter for CutOff Jeans.
So, Patreon is a website where listeners like you can pledge a small monthly amount. We're talking only $5 or $10, guys, to support the podcast and help defray the costs of bringing you the show each week.
To be clear, CutOff Jeans will continue to be absolutely free. But to thank you for your support, we are going to offer our patrons some fun little extras.
Like early access to the podcast every week, where you'll get to hear the latest episode before it's released to the general public.
And why not make your friends jealous with exclusive patron-only CutOff Jeans swag?
Fancy. And here's something you guys have been asking for, and I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to host a monthly, hour-long, online Ask Me Anything session where patrons at the $10 level can literally ask me anything.
Anything? You're a brave woman, Julie.
You know, I know. I'm also going to give access to my blog, Are You My Father?, where I tell the story of my search. Actually, it's my life story, basically, for my biological father in even more detail than I did on the podcast.
Wow. Your blog was the original inspiration for CutOff Jeans, wasn't it?
It was.
Wow. Well, all patrons at any level will receive a shout out on the podcast along with our undying gratitude for your support.
Yep. You guys know that this show is a labor of love for me. It's something I'm very passionate about. It'd mean so much to me if you would consider supporting our work here on the podcast by going to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast.
That's Patreon, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast.
We'll add a link to it on the podcast and on the Facebook page. Thank you all, my Gen Genies.
And now, on with the show.
Woo!
Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip, hip, hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Jeans.
Welcome to CutOff Jeans, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon-Jackson, and I am a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
And I am Richard Castle, the producer and co-host of this lovely podcast. Speaking of lovely podcasts, how's my lovely podcast host?
I'm well, thank you very much.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, well, we launched our Patreon campaign.
I know.
Just a couple weeks ago, and it's going quite well.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys. It's really nice to know that people are paying attention.
Isn't it gratifying?
Yes, it's gratifying. And just, it's not a huge thing, but it's nice to know that people support us.
Yes, definitely.
And, would like more.
Well, you know what? It's funny because you and I just sit here in my home office recording this podcast, and, we're just shooting the breeze together as two friends. And then suddenly we know people are out there listening to us. It's really... It kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice. And it's also nice to be able to talk personally to people.
Oh, yes.
Because I have to instantly message people and ask for their address so I can send them stuff.
Right.
So that's fun.
All the bling.
So much bling, you guys. I just put the first batch in the mail. So watch your mailboxes, guys.
It's so cute. Julie brought the bling to here,
bling.
And there's these cute little stickers that say the truth is in your genes.
Original.
Oh yeah, and they're really I love it. And then there's what is this?
So the stickers, everybody gets a sticker, and they're small. They're good for putting on your laptop.
Yeah. Oh, you've got one on yours. I see.
Yes, indeed. My daughter has them all over hers, so I want to be cool like her. And then the senior Gen Genies get these window clings as well.
These are bigger, and these are really cool.
Yeah, these are cool, you guys. Let me just explain.
It's got the logo. It's got the truth is in your jeans at the top, and it's got the little CutOff Jeans picture that you see when you the pants
and my embroidered DNA tree that I made.
It's so cool.
All homemade. And the cling goes on the inside of your window.
Yes. Yeah.
So that it
shows from outside.
And so that people can't peel it off because everyone's going to be wanting one of these, man.
I'm gonna put one on my sliding door here so birds won't fly into the door.
That's genius. Oh my gosh. That reminds me of, did I tell you the story of the geese?
I don't think so.
Before Christmas?
No.
Okay, I'm going to say it really fast. Lily, my daughter, goes to college, and her college is on a lake, and there are geese on said lake. And one evening she was sitting in her dorm and she saw like these shadows fly across her window, and then she heard 3 loud thumps.
Oh my God.
And she went and she looked down. I shouldn't be laughing. It's very sad. She looked down and there were 3 geese. They had all flown together into a wall or a window.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was all very morbid.
It sounds it.
Yeah, but amazing.
Yeah.
At the same time. I mean, that's something, living in LA, that is something we would never see.
No. But I was thinking more in terms of, because I've had actually a friend walk right through my screen because he couldn't see through to the other side.
Yeah, that happens
so,
a lot.
So maybe if I put this CutOff jeans sticker,
just right in the middle of the window.
Right in the middle of the window.
I should put one on my front window. I have a big picture window at the front of my house, a big arch picture
It's
window,
good
and birds fly into it daily.
Really?
Yes. So I should.
So
that would be very unsightly.
Well, I mean, it's good to ward against birds and stupid friends. I say that, but sometimes the light is such that you can't see.
I will admit to doing that more than once in my life as well.
Yeah. When I was a kid, we went down to Florida and someone, I don't know, we got home to wherever we were staying and somebody yelled, "Last one in the pool's a rotten egg." And I went running and I literally ran right through the screen. I didn't want to be a rotten egg, Julie.
It happens to the best of us. What would happen if you were the last one and you did become a rotten egg?
That would be like a Twilight Zone.
Write that down right now.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do a musical about that.
Oh, yeah. Rotten Egg, the musical.
Last one in. It's called Last One In.
And you know what? I think I can already hear the critics. It stinks. This rotten egg stinks.
This show is putrid. Okay. So let's thank our first 5. I'm going to do 5 a day.
Our 5 patrons.
Our first 5 patrons. Angela Harris Wilson. Thank you. Aniko Kling. Debbie Parrott in Canada. Emily Still in Australia. And Heather, who didn't give her last name.
Well, thank you all, whether you have last names or not. It's really very nice of you
thanks, you guys.
Support us.
We really appreciate it. And I've been posting the blog for the second level.
Yes,
the Senior Gen Genies.
Yeah, Senior Gen.
And occasionally I'll post things that I wouldn't feel comfortable posting on the regular Facebook page.
Sure,
because
it's going to a smaller group.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I'm very specific. Anything I post in there, guys, please don't share. Don't screenshot it and share it out in the world because I could be in trouble.
Oh, my goodness.
So thank you again, guys. We really appreciate it. It was a great launch.
I had a lovely birthday.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Sorry for not asking.
No, that's okay.
What'd you do?
That's why I put all those birthday cards on the table
so
when you walked in.
So that I would notice them when I came in. It was the first thing I saw.
I put them out just right before you walked in. No, I got a lot of calls and texts and all that, which is lovely. And
did I send you my usual birthday greeting that I stole from you?
Yeah, I think you did.
It's my favorite ever, and I use it with everybody, and I stole it directly from you. Years ago, Rich sent me a birthday greeting. It was probably an actual card at the time. But it said, happy birthday and many happy returns, whatever that means.
It's many happy returns of the day.
Yeah.
Of the day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I missed the of the day part.
Of the day.
Okay.
Whatever that means. I still don't know what it means.
I don't either, but I love it, and that makes me laugh. So now I give it back to you.
Oh, thank you,
There
Julie.
you go. Hey, I have a self-corrections corner.
Oh, that's different.
People have stopped correcting me because they're very polite, apparently, because I know there are a lot of corrections needed.
Yeah, well,
I'm aware of my limitations.
Well, when we talk as much as we do, there's a lot to look back and correct.
Some stuff is going to come out that's wrong.
Well, what's funny is when you're just talking to people in everyday conversation, you can say some misinformation and correct, and be incorrect.
But nobody's recording it.
Right, but now then you listen to it back and it's going out in the world.
And it's out there in the ether.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's a little daunting, actually. So I'm very aware of that.
So is this a retraction?
No, this is dumb, actually. I talked about my husband got me, when we were talking about our Christmas gifts.
Yes.
And I said my husband got me an Instapot.
Yes.
It's an Instant Pot.
Oh, I like Instapot better.
I don't like either.
No?
Frankly. And I'm returning the Instant Pot.
I thought you said you were trying all these new things with it, or you were going to.
I'm doing the one pot meals, but I like doing that on the stove. Instant Pot is like kind of a cheating version of that. And I like the idea of, it's great, but there's something else that I need and I didn't need that. You know what I'm saying? So that we don't spend more money, I'm going to return that because it takes up a lot of counter space.
Yeah.
I haven't opened it, guys. And get the other item that I need.
Yeah. My version of the Instapot or Instant Pot is like I go and do a spin class and then I go eat a pizza and I've got Instant Pot. It all comes back.
Or you go around the corner and buy yourself some Instant Pot.
Instant Pot.
Yeah.
I haven't done that. There's pot shops. It's funny. It was more fun when you had to go looking for it. Now when it's all
down an alley.
Now it's all over on every corner, and I just don't want it. It's like
I know. It's like there's no fun in this now.
It's like they sold out. I wonder if people felt that way like during Prohibition. Like it was so fun to go and get like some hooch, but now that you can go into a cocktail bar, it's just it doesn't have that same kind of like, oh, we're being naughty or we're doing something we shouldn't, and I don't know, something secret. Do we have any listeners old enough to have lived through Prohibition and would remember?
Well, they certainly seriously doubt that.
They probably wouldn't have been old enough to drink at that age. But it was Prohibition, so they could have drank at 5.
If they were, they're the oldest people in the world. My house was built during Prohibition that I live in.
Okay.
And I have there's some fun little features in that house that kind of talk to the whole Prohibition era, like they were put in there specifically, I think, because of Prohibition.
Oh, wow.
I have a closet in my studio, which is where I do hair, that was my office, that was my craft room, it's shelves that go into the wall. And so when it's closed, it just looks like regular shelves. But it's a door, and there's a closet behind it.
Wow.
And that's the Prohibition closet.
Where you would store your hooch.
Yes.
I just like saying hooch.
I like saying Turner and Hooch because I like Tom Hanks.
I lived in an old apartment in Long Beach. It was an old Spanish that was built probably in the 20s or 30s. And it had ironing boards that went up into the wall.
Yes.
But when you pulled down the ironing board, there was a framed, typed house rules.
Ooh.
And the rules were no radio after 8 o'clock at night.
Oh my gosh, it was like a boarding house.
And children had to enter from the back. Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm trying to remember what else they were, but they were all so interesting and they were all dated. Like they would never have that now. And especially the idea of radio. That's what
I love the fact that they still have it's still there.
It was behind the iron. And I think I probably lived there a year or two before I even knew it. I knew the ironing board was there, but
you didn't iron it? You didn't use it?
I don't iron,
Oh, okay.
But when I finally took it down and saw that, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been living with this.
That's a cool feature.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and it was typewritten and the paper was sort of yellowed with antiquity.
Yellowed with Antiquity. Yes. That's the name of my 80s cover band.
Oh, I thought it was going to be your autobiography.
Yes, actually. Much better idea. Okay, let's talk about genealogy, for heaven's sake.
Okay.
So you guys remember January 15th marked the day that New York adoptees can finally apply for their original birth certificate, assuming they're over the age of 18. 3,600 people applied in the first 48 hours that the law went into effect.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a backlog of people waiting for that.
Yeah, and I've heard that they're doing it really fast. It's only taking a couple weeks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's very cool. But, every time I announce that or I tell somebody who isn't in the know, they're shocked that that's even a thing.
Right.
That there are most states, guys, that still do not let us have our original birth certificates.
Because it seems like it's something of another age, right? Like we think we would move
Yeah, it's
past
one of those
that.
blue laws that should have been changed years ago.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, and it's my show.
So I get to have my own opinion.
Exactly. So that's a cool thing. Yeah, I was talking to a client last night who was born in Texas, and we were talking. I've found his biological mother, and there's still, in the way she's talking to him, apparently there's a mystery about whether or not his adoption was legal.
Mm-hmm.
So we're wondering if he even has an original birth certificate, because I have a feeling that, because she alluded to only she and the doctor knew about this.
Oh, wow.
So that would tell me that there's no paper trail.
Right.
And of course, he's from Texas, so Texas is a closed state. You can't get original birth certificates there.
I think about that, though. My grandmother told me that she was born on her kitchen table, like at home. Mm-hmm. And I just think, well, there must have been a birth certificate issued at some point.
Yeah, you have to, they're called post-dated birth, something like that. But within a certain amount of months, you have to go to
your town hall or wherever it may be and register the birth.
My mother's birth certificate is because she was born at home too, because she lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, her birth certificate that I have was done several months after she was actually born.
Right.
And I guess the midwife or whoever, a witness, has to say, yeah, that was the day she was born.
I see, to prove the actual date.
Yeah.
My next question to my grandmother after she told me that was like, please don't hand me down that kitchen table.
Oh, God.
Please tell me that's not like my heirloom.
And here's the kitchen table I was born on.
Yeah, she told me that over dinner.
On that very table. Oh, gosh.
Eat your peas.
Okay. News on the DNA front. This is not necessarily good news. Well, no, it's not good news at all, but it's news. 23andMe lays off 100 people as DNA test sales decline. So, yeah, Ann Wojcicki, who is the CEO, didn't have a clear explanation of why that is, but cited a variety of factors, including both recession fears and privacy concerns. My guess is privacy concerns. She said she anticipated that DNA testing would explode when she co-founded the business in 2007, but is now looking ahead to a retracting market.
Do you think, though, is it a retracting market, or is it just that Ancestry is so big and that most people are doing that?
I think all of the companies are noticing a slowdown.
Really?
Actually, yes.
I'm surprised to hear that. Only because I see advertisements for it now. Mm-hmm. Of course, that could just be because they somehow are listening to me doing a podcast.
Well, they're leaning into the ethnicity thing.
Right.
And which they always have, but even more so now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to kind of mask the whole controversy, the privacy controversy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like, for instance, I texted you a while back and I said, I'm a little stressed out because I have not heard from Ancestry that they even received my kit, right? I took the test right here on this podcast. Yeah, because I sent it. Well, here's the story. So I actually went to like a mailbox store to mail it, and I brought it up to the woman, and she made a big deal about it. She said, "Oh, it's a good thing you didn't just put this in the post office box, like outside, because in the mailbox, because people have been stealing things from there." And I'm like, "What? How did they even get their hand in there?" She's like, "Oh, they put some kind of tape." And I don't know. She's telling me some story, and I'm thinking, "Yeah, you just want my business." But whatever it was, she gave me this whole story, and then I gave her the tiny little box, and she threw it in a pile, like with a whole bunch of other big boxes. And all I could think of was, and I didn't have any kind of receipt, was, "Oh God, it's sitting on the floor of her mailbox store," because I registered with Ancestry as they tell you to do, and it says they'll let you know as soon as they receive it. And it was about 2 weeks before they even let me know they had received it. Yeah,
and you know what? You saying that now reminds me that I sent one in a couple weeks ago and I still haven't got a message that they received it. So.
I also think it might be that they receive it sooner than they say, because they said once they receive it, it's 8 to 10 weeks or something before they give you results. And if they have a backlog, particularly now it's January, right? Mm-hmm. And people have gotten these for Christmas. Yeah. So maybe they receive them and then they don't log them in until they know they can, there's enough time
they can
for
get to them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
I mean, I don't know anything about this, but I'm just guessing.
So now, were you anxious because you thought somebody could have got a hold of your spit?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I just thought, oh my gosh.
Because I'm like, nobody can do anything with that.
No, because you gave that to me as a gift, And I'm like,
well, let me say, if Ancestry doesn't receive your the test, they'll usually take your word for it and send you another one.
Okay, because I actually took a picture of the label.
Good job.
But I only did that because I couldn't read it.
And then you could enlarge it?
I could enlarge it.
Oh, technology.
Because, they tell you to put the code in on the Ancestry homepage, and I couldn't read it. It was too small.
Maybe it's time to wear glasses like I do.
I know.
I'm looking at you bare-eyed.
I know. I could have just gone and gotten my glasses, but I thought, no, I'll take a picture of it and then, zoom in, and that's faster.
Back to 23andMe.
Oh, yeah.
She acknowledges that privacy is top of mind.
I only heard the me part.
She said the company hired a new chief security officer who previously ran security at Okta earlier this week. I don't know what Okta is. But yeah, she is citing that because of the Golden State Killer thing, she thinks a lot of people have more privacy concerns. And once again, I'm like, so did they kill somebody? What? I don't know.
No, but maybe you plan to kill somebody someday in the future and you don't want that out there.
Yeah, you want your...
I haven't killed anybody yet, but I just want to keep that option open.
People who are planning on killing people should know not to leave their DNA at this point.
But, you never know what's down the path for you.
Yeah.
It might be a crime of passion. What if you're very passionate?
Ew, and you leave DNA?
No, I just mean like you've already given your sample, and then 10 years down the line, you have a crime of passion, and you forgot all about that DNA sample that you sent in that your friend Julie gave you for Christmas, and then you're like, oh, now what am I going to do?
Are you having a premonition about murdering somebody in 10 years?
Don't worry, it's not you.
That's all that matters. Let's take a break.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, or consider supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast. Now back to Julie and me.
Okay, here's something I found that's super interesting. The names of 1.8 million emancipated slaves are now searchable in the world's largest genealogical database, helping African Americans find lost ancestors.
That is fascinating.
Yes.
And we talked about my fascination with the novel and miniseries Roots, and then the interview that you did with that woman about this very topic.
Yeah, it's really interesting and really daunting for me, just because there's so much to weed through.
Oh, yeah.
To get to the truth. But this is the successes of the Freedmen's Bureau, initiated by Abraham Lincoln in 1865.
Freedmen's?
Yes.
Like freedmen.
It was called the... Yes.
I'm like,
who's this Freedman?
I'm like, the Jewish neighbors next door. The Freedmen's.
The Freedmen's. Okay, it was called the Freedmen's Bureau, which was initiated by Abraham Lincoln and was...
They have a lovely bureau. I went over there. It's an antique, actually. I think it was handed down. It's a little older.
In 1865.
Yes. It's almost as old as my grandmother's kitchen table that she was born on.
This is the furniture episode. There, I called it.
There you go.
Okay, so in those first few years after emancipation, however, the Bureau built several hospitals and over 1,000 rural schools in the South, established the historically black college and university system, and created millions of records that contain the names of hundreds of thousands of formerly enslaved individuals and Southern white refugees.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, those records have enabled historians to reconstruct the lives of people who might otherwise have disappeared from the record and help genealogists trace family connections that might have been irrevocably broken.
Yeah, when we talked about this, that it's so hard to trace that genealogy back because some of them didn't have names, or they were given names, or they just went by one name, that
they usually went by a first name, and if they did have a last name, it was the last name of their owner.
Right.
So those records have become part of a digitization project named for the Bureau and spearheaded by the Smithsonian, the National Archives, the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, and, of course, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, whose Family Search is the largest genealogy organization in the world. Using modern digital and web-based technology and the power of over 25,000 volunteers, the Freedmen's Bureau Project is unlocking information for a transformative era in the history of African American families and the American nation.
Wow, that's so great.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. I was puzzled by this. It says the information is now available to the general public globally via the web as of June 20th, 2016. That was 4 years ago. But this was published as a new article. So I'm not sure if this is an update.
perhaps that's when they started digitizing, and maybe now it's
complete.
Yeah, maybe.
Or something. Allowing all of us to enlarge our understanding of the past, more specifically the Freedmen's Bureau. There's the Freedmen's again. Freedman's Bureau. And Family Search allows African Americans to recover their family history in a database that now includes the names of nearly 1.8 million men, women, and children.
Wow. And that's a lot of names. It's a lot of people when you think about how many slaves there were. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But what a treat if you are an African American descendant of slaves who've run into roadblocks in your search for your family tree.
Yeah.
To be able to go back, You know,
I was watching Finding Your Roots last night with Dr. Henry Louis Gates on PBS. And one of the guests was the actress Justina Machado.
Oh, yeah. She was on that One Day at a Time. I loved her.
Yes.
Yeah, she's really good.
She's darling. But her history was fascinating. Her father was a heroin addict.
Okay.
And it turns out that her grandfather was also a heroin addict. And so that ran in the family. And he also was in prison, in the most notorious prison in Puerto Rico. And got more time because he was convicted of crimes against nature because he was gay.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's terrible, but I believe it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What was interesting was they took her DNA and they did a mitochondrial DNA test, which is different than an autosomal DNA test. It focuses on the maternal line.
Okay.
Basically. And there was definitely African DNA.
Yes.
And because it was from her mitochondrial DNA, they found her haplogroup, her mitochondrial haplogroup, which was based in part of Africa.
Wow.
And so they could actually say that her African DNA came from that side of her family from, however many years back. So I thought that was really interesting because, mitochondrial DNA isn't really something on the forefront right now. And Ancestry they used to do mitochondrial. Now it's just autosomal, which doesn't focus on that. It's more further reaching, I guess.
Right.
But it focuses on both sides.
I see.
But, and so I've never really thought much about doing mitochondrial testing, but that's interesting to me. I never thought about that.
Why do you think they stopped doing it? You said they used to do it, and now they don't, Ancestry.
I think because it wasn't as far-reaching. I think instead of they wanted so that people could take just one test.
I see.
Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think when they first started doing testing, they did Y-DNA testing and mitochondrial DNA testing. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Let me see. Going back to the Smithsonian Transcription Center is currently relying on volunteers to transcribe all of the digital scans provided by Family Search. So people are just doing this by hand.
Wow.
When completed, the papers will be keyword searchable. This joint effort will help increase access to the Freedmen's Bureau collection and help the public learn more about the U.S. in the Reconstruction era. Cool, huh?
That's really cool. And I forgot about that because digitizing it is one thing, but to make it searchable, you have to know what the words on there are, right? I mean,
and so it's doing like that predictive thing which I love.
But I mean, as far as, I don't know how they do this, but you scan something and you also try to scan it so that it's readable as words and not just a picture, right? And you think these were probably handwritten records.
They probably have to type in
I would imagine, unless
keywords.
there is some kind of software that can read someone's handwriting,
It's a really good question.
Right? Well, I'll just...
Well, I mean, on Ancestry, that's what they do. Like with the and some people are not good at it, by the way. The census.
The census data.
Yes, the census data, they usually have, and this is why you always should look at the actual document, not just what they say the document says.
Okay.
Because when I pull up the census, sometimes it has names that are not familiar or are misspelled or somebody misread it, and you go in and look at it and you realize how they misread it and it actually says something else.
Right.
So that's actually an important tip. Guys, look at the documents because not everybody that transcribes things is reading it correctly.
Yeah,
especially if they're not tuned into these people.
Or you're transcribing record after record after record, and you start to get loopy and you make mistakes.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. Should we take a break?
Why not?
All right.
Thank you for listening to CutOff Jeans with Julie Dixon-Jackson and Richard Castle. You can support us by going to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast. Now, back to the program.
Hi, guys. I have on the line Carol J. Laufer Covarrubias to tell us her story. Hi, Carol.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for taking my call. So Carol's going to tell us her story. It's an MPE story, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so why don't you start at the beginning or wherever you feel is appropriate to start?
I've always been into genealogy. I have been for about 35 years. Very interested in family history, and I predate Ancestry and anything else having to do with the internet. It was all done through just records that were handed down to me through my mom's family. And I kept records on paper. Well, then Ancestry comes around and I begin to connect through email with other people, and I go to the Mormon churches and I'm accessing records. One of the things is that I was not raised by my father. My father was never in the picture at all. He basically, my mother, from what I found out, she walked away from him when I was about a year old, about 12 months old.
Okay.
and she was pregnant with a second baby at the time too. My mother moved around a lot. I was born in Dallas, Texas, so we moved quite frequently. And I moved all over the state. We lived in all the major cities and all the little towns in between, and north side, east side of the towns, the cities that we lived in.
Okay.
So I would occasionally ask my mother about him, where he was, things like that. I wanted to know about his family. I wanted to know what his name was, what his parents' name were, the whole 9 yards. Because as I got older and I began to build, the family tree on my mom's side of the family, obviously I wanted to build his side out too.
Right.
And hope, learn more about his side of the family and where he came from and what his history and background and everything was.
Sure. Which is perfectly natural for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And considering I didn't have, and he wasn't in my life, I had no pictures of him. All I had was a name. And my mother did know quite a bit about him.
Okay.
So anyway, let's see. And there's a lot of details in between that I don't really. For instance, I ended up writing to the Vital Statistics Office to obtain his birth certificate and his death record because I wanted to make sure I had the right names for him and where he was born and his dates and things like that. Because my mother was, telling me one thing, but I wasn't finding the right records and things like that.
Right. So anyway, she gave you a name.
She did. His name was on my birth certificate.
Okay.
His first, middle, and last name. And I had his last name also.
Gotcha.
And my brother did also. I have a younger brother who's 17 months younger than me, and he also had this exact same information.
Okay.
So anyway, I did have his name. And so then I wrote to the Vital Statistics Office. I wanted to get a copy of their marriage record, divorce record, things like that. And I got a letter back from them stating they had nothing on file for them at all. And I confronted my mother with it and said, looks like you guys were never married. And my mother says, well, I guess not, and those were basically her answers for everything that whenever I would ask her any kind of questions. So anyway, I come to find out that he actually was married. And so they were having an affair, long-term affair between the two of us. He was married to another woman, had a couple of children with her. So long story short, when he was with his wife, my mother was involved with other men.
Okay.
So that takes us forward. So there was always this, there was always talk there had always been, my mother had always told me about, that there was Native American in the family on my dad's side, his mother's side of the family.
Okay.
And of course, that piqued my interest. And so I decided to once and for all find out if, in fact, I had Native American, any Native American, heritage,
Sure,
or lineage, or DNA or anything like that. So I decided to buy a DNA test. And so I did. And it was purely for that reason. Because I knew my mother's side of the family, which I had traced back. I had also traced his family back to like the 1500s. And I saw no Native American at all in his family. And the test comes back and it says that I am 50% Jewish. Oh. And I was like, I looked at it and I was like totally confused about that. I didn't know what to think. And I just like, well, this has got to be wrong because I know my history. I knew who he was. I had his name. It's the only name I'd ever had. He was on my birth certificate. Never once ever thinking that he wasn't, because I knew that my mother had been involved with him. I knew they had been together, for several years.
Yeah.
So anyway, but then I had a DNA match to a woman that was a really high DNA match. And again, I didn't know anything about DNA at this time. I hadn't been involved in DNA. All I did was genealogy. It was probably about a day or two later, I get a message from her and she says, wow, it looks like we're matching each other, and I don't know what this means, and I don't know who you are, and I'm sure you don't know who I am, and all this kind of stuff. And I sent her a message back, and I said, yes, it's true. I said, I don't know who you are, and I said, I have a lot of matches on my DNA matches that I don't know who they are either. And then she proceeds to tell me that she is adopted.
Okay.
And I was like, she says, maybe you can help me, because I don't know, like it's saying that we're like close family.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you remember how close it was?
We're in the 1500s.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 1500 Centimorgans.
Sure.
So I didn't know who she was. And, so anyway, I said, wow. I said, I don't know what to do. So I called Ancestry up and I told them, I said, I said, I think this is real. I called them up and I said, I think you have me like mixed up with somebody else, because I don't, there's a lot on here that I'm not understanding. And the ladies, well, what don't you understand? And I said, well, it's saying that I'm 50% Jewish, European Jewish. And I said, I know I don't have any Jewish in me. I said, I know that I have like a lot of English from my father's side of the family. And then my mom, I know what her side is. And so the lady's like, well, do you recognize any names on your match list? And I said, yes. I said, there's some cousins from my mom's side of the family, but there's also matches of people that I don't know. I don't know who the Rosenzweigs are. I don't know who the Cohens are. I don't know any of these people. And I said, I'm also matching a woman on here, like really high DNA, I assume, because at this point I was still learning about how much that meant,
sure,
between two people. And she's telling me that she's adopted and she's my highest match. And so the lady she's very kind. And she's like, well, we have all these, the way they run it through the lab and stuff. She said, well, it is correct.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, thank you very much. And I hung up.
Uh-huh. They get a lot of those phone calls, by the way.
Well, I have found out now that that's what happened.
Yeah.
And this was, like I said, this was almost 4 years ago. I had no clue.
Right.
I was clueless.
Mm-hmm.
I could build a tree. I could trace it. I could look at the records. I knew how to match people up and all that kind of stuff. But DNA was a whole new area for me. So anyway, I got back to her and I said, well, I don't know what we're supposed to do. I don't know how. She said, well, maybe we can figure this out. And I said, okay, fine. And so I immediately go onto Facebook and I type in the word DNA. And I'm like, okay, we got to get some people to help us, because I didn't know anything else to do. So immediately DNA Detectives pops up. So I tell her, oh, let's go join DNA Detectives. And so she goes, okay, fine. Whatever you tell me, I'll do. And then I said, looks like there's an adoption page. And she goes, okay, let's join that. So we started joining all of these same pages together. And I said, she goes, you take care of it all like that. And I said, okay, fine. So I did it. So I started posting questions and saying that I was new to all this and I didn't know what was going on. And so a woman stepped forward and said, I'll help you. And I said, okay. So we started messaging each other. And so she said, have you uploaded to GEDmatch? And I said, I don't know what GEDmatch is. And she says, okay, here's what you do. And I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And so then I told the other woman, I said, this is what you have to do. I was in a meeting a couple of days later, and she messages me back, and she says, did you get your results? And I said, well, let me log in and see. So I did, and she said, do you see anything on the X chromosome? And I was like, what? I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
And she said, tell me what you see on the X chromosome. It's going to say right there. She said, is she your top match? I said, yes. She said, do you have other matches? I said, yes. She said, do you know who any of those people are? I said, I think one or two people, but I still don't know who these other people are. And so she goes down and she says, okay, tell me what the numbers say. So I told her. And so she told me, she says, are you sitting down? And I said, yes. And she says, well, the woman that you're matching is your sister, your half sister. You have a full X chromosome match. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she says, that means that your birth father can only pass his X chromosome on in a full match to his daughters. And I said, oh, okay. Well, maybe I should have paid a bit more attention when I was in biology class, but it's been so long ago. So she explained it to me.
I don't know if they even taught that in biology class.
I was just flabbergasted. Yeah. I was like, I sat there in this meeting with my phone in my hand, and I could not believe what she was telling me. So now it became, okay, how are we related? So your mother must have come to where my father lived and hooked up with him, because I'm born in Dallas, Texas. You're born in New Jersey. What is the connection between these two places? Two random places.
Yeah.
Long story short, our birth father is Jewish. He's half Jewish, or he's full Jewish. She's 53% Jewish. I'm 50%. And the other part of her, she came back as Eastern European.
Okay.
But she's Polish. Okay. So her mother was Polish, father was Jewish, and he was from New Jersey, took a job in Dallas, Texas, went there, again, when my mother wasn't with the man who I thought was my father.
Right.
She had gotten together with him, and here I am. And that was proven through other DNA matches that we had in common with each other.
Right.
So it took me about 2.5 months through all the DNA matches and us uploading to GEDmatch for me to begin putting matches together, DNA matches, and trying to figure out how we were all connected together.
Yeah.
And I found it. It took me 2.5 months to find out, in fact, what his name was, and things like that. So he had passed in 2004. So at least we had a name.
Right.
And
can I ask you a question? So
yeah.
How far into this did you realize that your mom had given you the wrong name for your father?
Oh,
right when the Jewish stuff came up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a feeling, because I had no matches to any people at all. That the birth name that I had never came up once.
Not at all. Yeah.
For anyone or any of the other names of his mother and things like that.
So
there
none.
were no names.
Yeah.
There was no locations of anybody from where he was from. Nothing was in.
Okay.
Nothing. No one had any of that.
So that hit pretty quickly then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I let my sister. I let her know, and we were just like blown away. It took me about another 2 months after that once I got her DNA, once I was able to see all of her DNA matches from her side, to figure out who, in fact, her birth mother was.
Oh,
so
how nice. Well, she's lucky. She had you. Yeah.
We were able to contact a cousin of her mother's, and she told us the story about her mother and our birth father.
Oh.
And the fact they had been together for a couple of years. So he was in Dallas. I'm 11 years older than she is, by the way.
Okay.
So he'd been in Dallas for many years, left Dallas, went back to New Jersey, back to where his family was, met her mom. They were involved for several years together. She becomes pregnant and they want to get married. And she is from a very staunch Polish Catholic family.
Okay.
And her parents said no. This is 1967.
He was Jewish, right.
They're like, no, you're not marrying a Jewish man. And they would not allow the marriage to happen. And so her mother didn't have any other, what was she going to do? Right. So she wanted the best for the baby, and said, I'm going to place the baby for adoption.
Right. Okay, and that is the end of the first part of that conversation with Carol.
Great. We look forward to part 2 next week.
Yep, we do.
I want to thank our patrons at Patreon again. It's, I know we started off the podcast talking about it, but we really do appreciate you appreciating us. So
thanks, guys. I'm glad you're responding.
Yes. And I am Richard Castle, and in case you wondered, I have a website, richardcastle.com, where you can learn all about my songwriting and piano playing and musical writing. And you can follow me on the Twitter @CastleSongs.
I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. You can find me on the Twitter @JulesJackson. You can find the podcast on the Twitter @CutOffJeansPod. We have a Cutoff Jeans Facebook group that you can ask to join. And we also have a private Facebook group for Patreons or for patrons.
Yes.
That's our little special secret area. And
it's exclusive.
And you can also send me an email, julesjackson@cutoffjeans.com. Guys, if you would like to tell your story, please contact me. I really love talking to you guys. Every story is interesting, and people are delightful.
I think it's one of the most popular parts of our podcast.
It's restored my faith in humanity.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
It has. Right. And you know what else is saying a lot?
What?
The truth is in your genes.